A very good morning to all the students. This video for the class 7 subject science chapter number 12, that is reproduction in plants. This is the lecture number 3rd. In today's lecture the topics to be covered are, I am going to cover the NCERT solution of chapter number 12, that is reproduction in plants. So let us begin this lecture with the first question, that is the fill in the blanks. So the first part is the production of a new individual from the vegetative part of the parent is called as vegetative reproduction. Second is a flower may have either male or the female reproductive part. So such flower is called as unisexual flower. Okay, only either a male or a female reproductive part is present, that is unisexual flower. Third is the transfer of the pollen ring from anther to the stigma of the same or of the another flower of the same kind is known as pollination. Next is the fusion of the male and a female gamete is termed as fertilization. Last, seed dispersal takes place by the means of water and wind. Next is the answer of these fill in the blanks. In the first part, that is the vegetative reproduction. In the B part, that is answer is unisexual flower. Only either a male parent is there or a female parent. C is the pollination. At D, fertilization. And answer of the E is wind and water. Moving on the question number 2. Describe the different methods of asexual reproduction and give their examples. So you have to describe the different method of asexual reproduction. So first is the different method of asexual reproduction are, the first is vegetative propagation. So it is a type of a asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from the vegetative part, from the root, from leaves, stem and buds. This is vegetative propagation. An example of the vegetative propagation is vegetative propagation by stem in rows, that is the cutting. Next type of asexual reproduction is budding. Budding in the East is the example. Here the new organisms are produced by the bud formation from the parent organisms. After growing to the full size or at the maturity level, the bud gets detached and forms a new independent individual. In yeast, the new organisms are produced or a new yeast is produced by the bud formation from their parent organism. After growing to the full size or at the mature when they get mature, the bud gets detached and forms a new independent individual. Yeast is formed. Next is the fragmentation. Fragmentation means to break down the two fragment. When water and nutrients are available, so this algae grow and multiply rapidly and break up into the two or more fragment. So this fragment grow into a new individual. So fragmentation is seen in Spirogyra. So this is the example of this fragmentation. Next is spore formation. The spores are the tiny spherical unicellular structure that is protected by their thick wall, and spores are stored in hard outer covering that is called sporangium. In sporangium there the several spores are present, and under the favorable condition when the water and nutrient is present, the hard cover break and the spores spread for the germination. Okay. An example is bread mold, mosses and fern. Moving on the next question, explain what do you understand by the sexual reproduction. So the sexual reproduction means involvement of the two parents in the process of reproduction. It is mainly found in higher plants, which are where the male gamete and the female gamete fuses to form a zygote. So these zygote develop into an individual which are not identical, and offspring inherit the characteristics of both the parent. In sexual reproduction, the male reproductive part are the stamen, that is anther and filament, while in the female reproductive parts are stigma, style and ovary. Moving on the next question, question number 4. State the main differences between the asexual and sexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction, where only a one parent plant is involved. In sexual reproduction, both male and female parent are involved. Asexual reproduction occur in unisexual plant. Unisexual plants are either a stamen or a carpel is present, while sexual reproduction occur in the bisexual plant. Asexual reproduction occurs in the lower plant and sexual reproduction occurs in the higher plant. In asexual reproduction, reproductive organs are not present, only the vegetative organs are present. In sexual reproduction, fully developed reproductive parts are present, like stamen and carpel. In asexual reproduction, most of the methods are the original parent disappear. In asexual reproduction, original parent may be disappear, but in sexual reproduction, original parent remain alive after the process of the reproduction. Next, the process like the gamete formation or the fertilization is not seen. Here in sexual reproduction, fertilization of gamete give rise to zygote because the male and the female gametes are present in the sexual reproduction. Here in the asexual reproduction, characteristics of only one parent is inherited, while in the sexual reproduction, characteristics of both the parents are inherited. Here in asexual reproduction, no needs of the seed, while in the sexual reproduction, seeds are used to get the new plants from a flower plant. Okay, next is the question number 5. You have to sketch the reproductive part of a flower. So in reproductive part of the flower, there are the two parts, male gamete and the female part. So this is the structure of the stamen, that is about the male reproductive part. Here the anther is present at the top. This anther is bilobed structure, and at the anther there are the several pollen grains are present which are male gamete, and this is a stalk-like structure is filament. While in the structure of carpel or pistil, the three main parts are present: stigma, style and ovary. Here stigma is the uppermost part where all the pollen grains land on the stigma. Then style is present that attach stigma and ovary. Here at the basal part, the swollen part is ovary. In ovary there the several ovules are present. In ovules the female gamete are present, that is egg cell. So these are the reproductive part of the flower. In the female reproductive part, carpel is present. In the male, stamen is present. Moving on to the next question, question number 6, that explain the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. So self-pollination means the pollen grains from a flower are carried to the stigma of the same flower, that is self-pollination. While in the cross-pollination, the pollen grains from a flower are carried to the stigma of different flower on the other plant, that is cross-pollination. Okay, in self-pollination, pollen grains from a flower carried to the stigma of the same flower, but in cross-pollination, pollen grains lands on the stigma of the different flower. Next, in the self-pollination, such flower do not need any pollinating agent like insect and wind, but in cross-pollination, the flowers need the pollinating agents like butterfly, several insects, wind. In self-pollination, it is less preferable from the genetic point of view, since there is no mixing of genes. Here in cross-pollination is more preferable from the genetic point of view, since the new characters can be produced in the cross-pollination, because here in the cross-pollination pollen grains land on the stigma of the different flower. So they are the two characters of the flower from the first one and on the second one. Next is question number 7. How does the process of fertilization takes place in flower? Firstly, when the pollen grains reaches the stigma of a same species flower, it starts growing out into the pollen tube of the stigma. Fertilization is a process when the male gamete fuses with the female gamete. Then they form a zygote. So, pollen grains are the male gamete. They reaches to the stigma of the same species of the flower. Then it starts growing out its pollen tube into the stigma. So, this tube continue to grow inside the style. It reaches to the ovules where the female cell is present. Okay, from this pollen tube the male cells are released into the ovule for the fertilization with the female egg cell. When they get fused, when the male gamete fuses with the female egg cell, then zygote is formed. So this is about the fertilization in flowers. Next is the question number 8. Describe the various way by which seeds are dispersed. There are the following ways in which the seeds are dispersed. First, some light seeds like that of the madar oak, which are hairy, dry and small. So they are carried away by the help of wind to the different places. That is, here is the seed dispersal by the wind in mother plant. That is mother plant. Second is, there are the spiny seeds in the fruits like that of xanthium, okay, and urena. They stick to the bodies of animal. Here the seed dispersal method or the factor for the dispersal is animal. These spiny seeds in the fruits of xanthium, they get stick to the body of animal, and these seeds are carried away by these agents to the different place. Next is, in some plants having heavy seeds like that of coconut, so water act as a dispersing agent. In coconut plant, water act as a dispersing agent. Next is, some seeds are dispersed with the fruit burst like in case of balsam and castor. Because of the fruit bursting, the seeds get dispersed in the case of balsam and castor plant. Moving on the next question. Match the item in column first with those in the column second. In column first is bud and maple plant, I, Spirogyra, fragmentation, winds, bread mold, and spores and potato. At last, rose. So you have to match the column with column first with the right one in the column second. So bud is, you can see the yeast in the budding. I, here on this potato, there are the several scars are present, that is I. Fragmentation. Fragmentation occurs in Spirogyra. And winds. Winds is a dispersal agent, that is in maple. Spores. In spores, spore formation occurs in bread mold. This is the answer. Budding in yeast, eyes on potato. There are several scars present on the potato. These are known as eye. Fragmentation occurs in Spirogyra. Wind is a dispersing agent in maple plant. Spores formation occurs in bread mold. Moving on the next question. Tick the correct answer. So the reproductive part of a plant is the flower. Flower is a reproductive part of the plant. Next is, the process of fusion of male and the female gamete is known as fertilization. The process of fusion of male and the female gamete to form zygote is fertilization. Next is, the mature ovary forms the fruit and ovule form a seed. Next is, the spore producing plant is bread mold. Spore formation occur in bread mold. This is the answer. Okay. Next is, the bryophyllum can be reproduced by it's a vegetative reproduction by leaves. So bryophyllum is the example of vegetative reproduction by leaves. Next is the homework solution of lecture number 2. So question is, what is pollination? So pollination is the process where the transfers of the pollen grains from one stigma to the another plant is called pollination. The process of pollen grains that land on the stigma on the same flower or the different flower, that is pollination. Next is define the seed dispersal. Here the seed dispersal means to transportation of the seed from the parent plant to the different place with the help of dispersal agent is called as seed dispersal. Seed dispersal means scattering of the seed by the help of dispersal agent, that is wind, animal, air or water. These are the dispersal agent. Next is question number 3. When you keep food item like the bread and fruit outside for a longer time, especially during the rainy season, so you will observe a cottony growth on them. The cottony growth on them. So what is this growth called and how does this growth takes place? So this growth called as, it is a bread mold, which is the fungus. You have seen in a spore formation in the bread mold. That is the fungus. The cottony growth is the fungus. And how does this growth takes place? This growth takes place because of the several spores are present. Bread mold grows from the spores. Okay. Next is the homework of today's lecture. So question, you have to revise and learn all the NCERT questions of chapter number 12, that is the reproduction in plants. So you have to write all these NCERT questions and solution of chapter 12 in your science notebook. Okay, this is it about this video. Hope you have understood this video. Thank you and have a nice day.